Life Audio.
On today's episode of Timeless Wisdom.
I have great admiration for my parents' generation, absolutely. Fought World War II, the Korean War. It certainly was a distinguished generation, and distinguished in particular by its patriotism. How did that generation produce the baby boomer generation characterized by so much narcissism, so much antipathy to America and its institutions, so much anger at the religion of their parents? Pretty much whatever most of those parents stood for, the kids overthrew.
That's coming up on Timeless Wisdom with Dennis Prager.
Life can be messy, but you don't have to figure it out alone.
Hey, it's the Luskos.
Join pastors and best-selling authors Levi and Jenny Lusko on Hey, It's the Luskos for honest conversations about faith, marriage, family, grief, ministry, and all the unexpected moments in between. You'll laugh, you'll be encouraged, and you'll be reminded that God is faithful through every season.
It will always come back to Jesus in the end.
That's right. Tune in to Hey, It's the Luskos with Levi and Jenny Lusko. Available now wherever you get your podcasts.
Welcome to Timeless Wisdom with Dennis Prager. Hear thousands of hours of Dennis's lectures, courses, and classic radio programs. And to purchase Dennis Prager's Rational Bibles, go to DennisPrager.com.
To be or not to be? That is the question.
Where was God? Isn't God supposed to be good? Isn't he supposed to love us? Does God want us to suffer?
10 years, you're not finished yet? Morty! Why did you do this to me?
Who are you?
Bruce, I'm God.
Bingo! Yahtzee! Is that your final answer? Our survey says God! Bing, 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 bing. Well, it was nice to meet you, God. Thank you for the Grand Canyon, and good luck with the apocalypse.
All righty, you're listening to the Dennis Prager Show. This is the Ultimate Issues Hour. Each week at this time, I devote an hour to some great questions, subject of life. And something that has puzzled me pretty much my whole life is this. We call the generation of World War II, it has now become fashionable, at least, to call that generation the greatest generation. I don't buy that. I have great admiration for my parents' generation, absolutely. Fought World War II, the Korean War, and much of the Cold War, and the sacrifices made at home through the families that stayed back, and the numbers of Americans who died abroad and just went under either a draft or volunteered to go and fight either the Japanese fascists or the Nazis. There was a lot of greatness in that generation. Absolutely. I don't say it's the greatest generation. Is it greater than the generation of George Washington and the founders of the country? That's an odd statement. But it certainly was a distinguished generation, and distinguished in particular by its patriotism. How did that generation produce the baby boomer generation characterized by so much narcissism, so much antipathy to America and its institutions, so much anger at the religion of their parents? Pretty much whatever most of those parents stood for, the kids overthrew. How did the greatest generation produce a non-great generation? I won't say the worst generation. That might be as hyperbolic as saying that the other one was the greatest. That's my question here. And of course, there will be those who will say, "Oh, what are you kidding? This is the greatest generation, the generation of the '60s and '70s, idealistic, make love, not war. This was question authority." Give peace a chance. This was the greatest generation. Okay, if you believe that, then this may not be relevant to you. But even if you do believe that, you have this question: how did Generation X produce Generation Y? Why didn't, or forget, because we have a Generation X concept. Why did Generation A not produce generation A2? How did it produce generation not A? How did that happen? How did the parents produce children with such different values? It isn't true in every case, and for those where it's not true, that you don't have to answer this question for your family, but you have to answer it for this country. To many people, to my parents, it is almost unrecognizable. The America that they see today is almost unrecognizable. Now, you may say that it's better. After all, there's much less racism, and it's better. I fully acknowledge that. But in most ways, I think it's worse. And with a generation that is mine, of baby boomers, which with a very self-referential view of the world, how did that happen? How did that happen? This was a generation that accepted the draft. Today, you mentioned the word draft. The idea that you would be conscripted to fight for your country, and it is I don't know, it's like showing a cross to Dracula. Just about everything. They were more religious, the parents, as a general rule. They were more patriotic, the parents, as a general rule. And just, value after value seems to be different. And so that's the question. The answer, whatever side you're on, the answer applies to you. You may have the children's values. And what I'm about to say, you will want to hear, because then you will be able to answer, how do you pass on your values? And here is my fundamental answer, which was lost on most of that generation. And that is, you must conscientiously, deliberately pass on values, or they are not passed on. Values are not passed on just because parents live them. There arose a nincompoop idea, like so much of the age of stupidity, as I call it, that my generation ushered in the 60s and 70s. This nincompoop idea was parents don't have to articulate values, let alone impose them on their children. They just have to embody them in their own lives. You be models to your children, and they will pick up on your modeling, and that's the value system that they will live by. Wrong. You have to articulate values, not just live them. And they weren't. They weren't articulated, and parents didn't know how to answer their kids when they'd come back from college, to which the parents often didn't go to. College was the big subverter of the value system, because already in place were those new values with a lot of professors. Nationalism stinks. Patriotism is a code word for fascism. Religion is for morons and produces evil, like the Inquisition, and that's what is taught. The kids came home to the parents and said, "What? What do you mean war is good? What are you talking about? War is good? War is a tool of the industrial class, the military-industrial complex, Dad. What are you telling me war is good? Killing is good, Dad? What's wrong with you? I just took Sociology 4.6. Dad, I'm getting a BA. What the hell do you know? Oh, maybe, you fought the Nazis. That's history, man. That's history. But war? Come on, make love, not war, Dad. Dad, what do you mean marriage? Come on, Dad, that's old-fashioned. Men and women are different, Ma. Ma, you were brainwashed by Dad. You were brainwashed by a patriarchal system, Ma. You really believe that stuff? And that's, I saw that, I heard these. Nothing I have said was made up. Nothing. I heard those very arguments in my own home, when friends would visit, in my own home, from kids to their parents who would be visiting, and when I would visit other kids' homes. I heard this all the time. You live these ridiculous values, you, this last generation, and the parents didn't know how to answer. See, there is the belief among people with good values, and by and large, the past generation had good values, that it's so obvious that this is a good thing. It's so obvious America has been a largely good enterprise that, we're going to have a bunch of kids grow up thinking America stinks? Or in their language, America sucks? We're going to have a generation that believes that? We're going to have a generation study textbooks written by people who think that the world would be better if there were no America, like Howard Zinn, the most widely read historian of the of my generation, the baby boomer generation. You think parents of the quote-unquote greatest generation could ever have imagined that? No, nothing that has happened by and large is imaginable to them. So once again, here is the answer. You have to know what you stand for, and then you must articulate it to your children, to the next generation. What happened was American good American values were habit. They were not intellectually grounded. People didn't know what they stood for. They just knew it was good stuff. But they really didn't know how to articulate it. Their kids went to college. They couldn't answer them. And we have the America that we have today. You must articulate values and know what you believe. We return, and I'll take your calls on the Ultimate Issues Hour on the Dennis Prager Show.
This episode of Timeless Wisdom will continue right after this.
For nearly 3,000 years, Homer's The Odyssey has shaped Western imagination. It tells the story of Odysseus as he faces monsters, shipwrecks, false comforts, and impossible choices on his long journey home. As one of the foundational works of Western literature, Homer's epic is more than a mythology. It explores permanent questions about courage, duty, loyalty, family, leadership, temptation, and the search for home. In one of the epic's defining moments, Odysseus rejects the offer of immortality from the goddess Calypso, choosing instead the long and difficult journey home. His decision reveals one of the central themes of the Odyssey, that a life of duty, family, and home is greater than a life devoted to comfort or glory. Achilles chose glory, Odysseus chose home. That's why Hillsdale College has released its newest free online course, The Odyssey. Taught by Professor Benedict Whalen, the course reveals why Homer's masterpiece remains one of the greatest works of Western literature. Find this free course at charlieforhillsdale.com. That's charlieforhillsdale.com. Read the classics, study the West. The Odyssey from Hillsdale College. Go to charlieforhillsdale.com.
Now, back to more of Dennis Prager's Timeless Wisdom.
It's a little different, this Ultimate Issues Hour, than many other Ultimate Issues Hours, for as it says, how was this Ultimate Issues Hour different from all other Ultimate Issues Hours? And in one way, it is. I'm asking, I think it is an ultimate issue. It's just different. How did the past generation, called the greatest generation, produce a generation that has such different values than it? I'm putting that's a neutral way. I think worse values. But even if you think they're better values, they're certainly different. For that generation, the patriotism, fighting for your country, fighting for freedom. I mean, so many things were so taken for granted, and that's my point. You can't take anything good for granted. You can't. You have to pass it on consciously and conscientiously. Now, let's take your theories on this. We have quite a few interesting ones. Alta Loma, California, and Keith. Hi, Keith. Dennis Prager.
Oh, good. How are you doing today?
Okay, thanks.
Good. My theory was that the greatest generation is so-called suffered so much with World War II and the Depression that I think a natural knee-jerk reaction was to say my kids aren't going to suffer that type of hardship or pain.
Very intelligent.
And as a result, they indulged that generation unknowingly and unwittingly and didn't pass along the very things that made them great. And it's kind of hard to pass along hardship, but that does make for a better person. But the knee-jerk reaction would be to go against that grain.
Cuddle them. That's great. I want to keep a listing. That's a good one. I'll read the list off later of the ones I agree with anyway. That one I do. I agree with. I hadn't thought of that. We've suffered so much. You, the baby boomers, you won't suffer. And that's right. That's right. And people who don't suffer don't know evil. And that is, of course, the great problem with so many of my generation. They don't understand evil. You know, evil is evil is not recycling, not torture and mass murder, which they don't know of. All righty, let's go to some more theories that you might have. Jim in Dallas. Jim, Dennis Prager, hi.
Hi, how are you today?
Okay.
I don't know whether this is cause or effect. One of those deals.
Yes.
And I have three of them, three causes. One of them would be Dr. Spock on his raising of children.
Yeah.
Playboy magazine.
Yeah.
And Dr. Timothy Leary.
All right, that's it's another interesting theory, but he's right. Which comes first, the chicken or the egg? But those are pretty early. Dr. Spock did have a real impact. It's true. We ought to have somebody who's written on that about the child rearing advice, which was quite permissive. And that goes to another subject we will have as another Ultimate Issues Hour, and that is the breakdown of authority. Authority has broken down, and that is the single biggest problem probably, or the single biggest cause of our problems. The authority, I have talked about this, the authority of God, the authority of police, the authority of parents, the authority of teachers. The only authority is the self. I look to me, I'm my own authority. That is my generation's belief. Of course there are exceptions, and there are millions of exceptions, but that has been an innovation into American thought of my generation. Dr. Spock, in that regard, the permissive upbringing would be an example. Who else did he? Playboy. Playboy, which started, I think, in the 50s, early 50s. What Playboy did was to de-dirtify pornography. It said that because the whole point was it's the girl next door. And so gradually it made it because it wasn't brown bag raunchy, it made it acceptable. I think that's what would be argued was the effect of Playboy. That it's wholesome. It's wholesome nudity, as opposed to dirty nudity. And I think and he would say that, Hugh Hefner. He would say, look, we differed from all the other stuff. There were magazines like that, with undressed women in the past.
Yeah, but it was more than and it was sexual permissiveness. That was a big
yes, all right, and sexual permissiveness. Yeah, I think even more than the looking at pictures. That had always been since photography, from before photography. But it was the Playboy philosophy. So that's right. Which he would say too. That was what really did it, not the pictures. There was the Playboy philosophy, and that was embodied in my generation's statement: "Make love, not war. Making war is not noble. Making love, that's noble." And then the third one, he said, Timothy Leary with the drugs. Well, this is all. What it all came down to was we don't need authority in any of these things. What was right and wrong in the past. The idea that mom and dad waited to have sex for marriage. I mean, they did other things before marriage, believe me, mom and dad, and there were people who had premarital sex in the 1930s also. But by and large, people waited for marriage, and if they got pregnant, they had a shotgun wedding. And there was the belief that if you're going to have children, forget sex, if you're going to have children, you're going to be married first. That was the belief. But everything was overthrown because that wasn't taught as a value. Nothing was taught as a value. Just, we love you, and we're going to give you the best house, the best everything. And then the kid watches TV. TV starts at that time, and everything is overthrown. Virtually everything from the past. 1-8-PRAGER-776. We go to a preschool teacher, Lauren in Los Angeles. Hello, Lauren. Dennis Prager.
Hi, thank you very much for taking my call.
Thank you.
I'm a preschool teacher, and so often there's a bulletin board or a poster that says, children learn what they live. Have you seen that?
No.
Okay, well, it's a poster that they make me put up in my classroom that irks me because it's not good enough for us to just, show them what a good person is supposed to do. You have to tell them, oh, we don't do this, or we do this. And when parents on back-to-school nights, when I say, hitting is not necessarily a bad thing, they go berserk because they think I'm teaching their children to be some sort of warrior. But what I'm teaching is, if someone touches you the wrong way, or if someone, threatens you physically with violence, you might have to hit somebody and run to the teacher. You don't just have to stand there.
I'm amazed you still have your job.
So am I.
Yeah, that's sad. So is she. That's sad. There is a term that Trotsky, the Bolshevik, used, permanent revolution. And I've applied that to goodness. Goodness and good values need to be permanently taught as if it's the first generation learning it. I'll explain when we come back.
This episode of Timeless Wisdom will continue right after this.
Rising interest rates, stock volatility, out-of-control inflation. People are concerned about what the future holds financially. This is Dennis Prager for AmFed Coin and Bullion. There's no better time than the present to move a portion of your IRA into precious metals. You should know there's a right and a wrong way to set up your precious metals IRA. Mistakes could cost you hundreds of thousands of dollars in IRS fines. Call AmFed Coin and Bullion, 800-221-7694. AmericanFederal.com. That's AmericanFederal.com.
Now, back to more of Dennis Prager's Timeless Wisdom.
All right, everybody. Dennis Prager here. This is the Ultimate Issues Hour, and I'm talking about how what's called the greatest generation. I don't believe that that's the right term. There are many great generations in American history, but in many ways it was a great generation. Raised a generation with such different values than its. And I'm putting that as neutrally as possible because I think that the values are overwhelmingly worse values. Not in every instance, but by and large. And how did that happen? And here we were talking about this, and I was saying to you that every generation has to see the next generation as the first in history. You can take nothing for granted, nothing, in the raising of the next generation. I'm not just talking to parents, because I do believe with Hillary Clinton it takes a village to raise a child. Conservatives absolutely must agree with that. The idea that just parents raise a child has never been true in history. Never. It's absurd. Unless you take your children to a desert island, of course society raises your child along with you. That's why you want good peers, and you want good neighbors, and you want good uncles, and you want good aunts. It drives me nuts. There shouldn't be, just because Hillary Clinton said something doesn't mean it's wrong. I don't have her values, but I have her theory. She's right. It does take a village to raise a child. We were all raised by villages. My parents' friends played a role in my life. My grandparents played a role in my life. My peers played an immense role in my life. God forbid it's just parents, to be perfectly honest. Parents are flawed human beings. We need a whole larger canvas from which to make ourselves, to paint ourselves, to use some artistic metaphor here. So society and parents have to look at the next generation as brand new, like it's the first in history. They are not born with any of our values, none, and they don't come through osmosis. That's my point. If they came through osmosis, then my generation would have similar values to the quote-unquote greatest generation, but it doesn't. It doesn't come through osmosis. Now, there are a lot of specific reasons for why this generation didn't adopt the values of its parents, but that's another one. All righty, let's go to Philadelphia and Bill. Hello, Bill. Dennis Prager. Thank you for calling.
Hi, Dennis. It's an honor to talk to you.
Thank you.
I agree in part with what you're saying. Now, I grew up in Levittown, which is like Levittown, Pennsylvania. It was every man's place to grow up in. And I thought the values were articulated perfectly. They were very simple. We all came, our parents were, most of them were in the service. And they were all, let's say, blue-collar workers for the most part, steel workers, auto workers, things like that. And the message was simple. Don't steal, don't cheat. And these were reinforced on a daily basis. And there were millions of kids in my neighborhood, and we all heard the same thing every day. So I always asked myself, what happened? I agree in part that they could have been articulated better, but I also think, in the other gentleman's examples, the Playboy and so on, I think there was a failure in the institutions. For example, the message of Playboy couldn't have been spread if the courts didn't say it was great to propagate pornography, or well, not great, that was perfectly legal for thousands of years or for hundreds of years.
Ironically, they didn't. There really are obscenity laws. It's just that they were denied as being factors. I'll tell you, though, I think that Alan corrected me, and I agree with him. It wasn't the pictures, it was the philosophy.
Yes, absolutely.
The philosophy was basically hedonism.
With the pictures.
Yeah.
Also, the churches abandoned us, and then academia abandoned. You know, in my grandmother's generation, if she wasn't very articulate with her values, the church would pick up, or the local school would pick up.
Yes,
that started to change dramatically.
Well, that's very good. That's part of my village. They did. A lot of the churches and synagogues saw themselves as social workers. The purpose of religion became to comfort, not to provide moral authority. That's worthy of its own. The change in religion. That's a great subject. And the schools became daycare centers essentially, not propagators of society's values. We return on the Ultimate Issues Hour, Dennis Prager Show.
Hi, Dennis. This is Stan from Tenafly, New Jersey. I'm so sorry to hear about your accident. Please focus on your music. Please get some cigar smoke around you to cheer you up, and have someone read Philo to you, especially page 594. Sorry again, but cheer up. Remember, happiness is 100%.
Are you enjoying Timeless Wisdom? We'd love to hear from you. Call 877-243-7776 and leave a review, share your thoughts, or just even an encouraging word for Dennis. Your voicemail might just make it on the show. That's 877-243-7776. That's 877-243-7776. Thanks for listening and for your support.
All right, my friends, welcome back. The Ultimate Issues Hour, and the Ultimate Issue, that's 1 hour each week devoted to some great issue of life. How did a generation, and I don't think there's a precedent for this in American history, of a generation having such different values from its parents as the baby boomers from its parents. Whether you like the baby boomer values or you like the parents' values, I think everybody can agree on that. There has never been a gulf like that. And I saw it. I lived it. I saw it. It was astonishing to witness in the 60s and 70s. In the micro and the macro, in the views of America, in the views of sex, in the views of God, in the views about religion, every area of life, it was a different universe. And how did that happen? And the last caller made some very fine points. Because I have been saying, so I'm challenging myself here, well, this is what happens when you don't articulate values and think that they just will continue. And I am right. That is what happens. However, it is totally understandable that they would have thought that these values will continue in the next generation, the baby boomer generation, because that's how they continued them. Their parents were not great articulators of values either. So there must be something in addition to parental failure to communicate values to my generation, my Dennis's generation. And the answer is institutional. They just changed. The institution, the schools changed, and this was that which proves that the ideas are much earlier than the 60s. There was an incubation period. I mean, was Dewey was a forerunner of the educational breakdown that we now see. A lot of these ideas were percolating from Europe and among the intellectuals, and then they trickle down to the rest. And so that's why I said earlier, churches which had been the bulwark of values became places to comfort you. I'm not going to tell you right from wrong. I'm just going to tell you that we love each other. God is love. We are love. We love each other. He loves us. We love him. You love me. I love you. You love me. And that's what it became. Live. All righty. Let's go to Central Line, Michigan. And Robert. Hello, Robert. Dennis Prager.
Hi. How you doing?
Okay.
I remember in school being told by a teacher that Leave It to Beaver and Father Knows Best were the two examples he cited, were unrealistic portrayals of American life, and that's why they were going to be taking them off the air. And I remember at the time thinking that, well, isn't that why we watch them, to give us something to strive for?
Yeah. Right.
I can get reality by turning off the TV and walking down the street.
So Desperate Housewives, that depicts real life.
Yeah, right.
That's what we've got from Leave It to Beaver to Desperate Housewives in one generation. Well said, my friend. Thank you so much. Christina in Tucson, Arizona. Dennis Prager, hi.
Hi, Dennis. It's Christina. Thanks for helping me contribute to your conversation.
Mm-hmm.
I think that the greatest change in our society after World War II, one of them was moms choosing to stay in the workforce when the men came home. I know you mentioned already that parents might not be the crux, but I think that it was at least a contributor because the moms were then not at home to be an anchor.
Mm-hmm.
And with their divided loyalties then between a job and wanting to perform there and not being able to devote their full, creativity and energy.
Right, and realizing that they could do a really good job.
Sure they could.
That was translated into, well, there are no differences between the sexes.
Yeah. And then they have to trust more and more of their training to schools, after-school programs.
That's
or
very
whatever.
good. That's very good.
Let me point out a contemporary example. I don't know how many homeschooling families you know, but have you noticed how their children are different?
No kidding.
We get comments all the time. We have 7 children.
Yeah, you know what? I'll tell you in one word, 2 words, it'll have to be how they're different. Not jaded.
No, they're not. And they're polite.
That's right.
And it's because their moms are on them all day. Oh, no, honey, don't hit. Would you please say thank you? You need to pick that up. I'm not your maid. Those kind of training things that happen all day long.
Yes.
That frankly are exhausting. But I really, in my heart, feel like they're going to be even better citizens.
I think they will. I agree with you. Excellent. Folks, you're making such good points. They've broadened my own theories on this. There's another terrific idea from Akron, Ohio. Dan. Hello, Dan in Akron. Dennis Prager.
Hello, Dennis. I think one factor that didn't allow the greatest generation to pass on its values was that their great weakness, race, was exploited by the left, and once
Brilliant.
you paint a
Brilliant.
group as a racist, all their other values can be dismissed as racist, from a racist generation.
Dan, do you smoke cigars?
Yes.
We should send him one. And that is a very, very intelligent, novel insight. I thank you so much. That's right. That's what was done. How do you depict America as bad? Look, there was racism, which there was. It was slavery and then Jim Crow laws. That's absolutely right. And using that, well, then America must be awful. It's no better than anybody else. Look at the racism. And that's what was used. That's exactly right. So nothing could be right. Nothing about it is right because, after all, there was racism. No country in its history ever conquered racism so quickly as we have in the last generation, but it doesn't matter, apparently. 1-8-PRAGER-776, the Ultimate Issues Hour. Dennis Prager Show continues.
This episode of Timeless Wisdom will continue right after this.
Rising interest rates, stock volatility, out-of-control inflation. People are concerned about what the future holds financially. This is Dennis Prager for AmFed Coin and Bullion. There's no better time than the present to move a portion of your IRA into precious metals. You should know there's a right and a wrong way to set up your precious metals IRA. Mistakes could cost you hundreds of thousands of dollars in IRS fines. Call AmFed Coin and Bullion, 800-221-7694. AmericanFederal.com. That's AmericanFederal.com.
Now, back to more of Dennis Prager's Timeless Wisdom.
You're listening to the Dennis Prager Show. I'm going to summarize some more points. You folks, look, I give you a hard time sometimes, so you know I don't patronize you. I have learned as much this hour as I think I may have taught. Your calls have been superb, and the points continue superb. And Tom in Los Angeles says, less was expected of us. I'm asking, this is the Ultimate Issues Hour. The ultimate issue has been, how did a generation produce a generation with opposite values as my parents' generation? I don't mean my parents personally. I share their values. But in general, how did a generation produce the next generation with such different values? The baby boomers so different from basically all past generations of America. How did it, not just the parents? And I've been speaking about the lack of articulation of these values. I'll tell you everything you've all said has been excellent. The institutional breakdown is unbelievably important. I totally agree. But you see, what has happened is we have not articulated them for so long, the values. For example, those of you who say you believe in Judeo-Christian values, do you know what they are? I'll bet you couldn't articulate what they are. You believe in values, and it's not your fault. I'm not blaming you. That's why I wrote a 24-parts column a couple of years ago. Go to PragerRadio.com and look at the archives of my columns. 24 columns that year on what Judeo-Christian values are. People don't know what they are. And in effect, that's what I do every day here, is articulate values, so that things, the challenges to them, can be answered. Anyway, Tom says less was expected of us, and we lived up to it. That's probably true. Tim in Seattle, former teacher, individualism created worse generation because made people selfish. The truth is, America has thrived on individualism. My generation didn't have individualism. My generation had selfishness. Selfishness is not the same as individualism. They all wore the exact same jeans and shirts. All the individualists of my generation. They looked identical. Wayne in Honolulu, and this put down, Alan, for an ultimate issue, wants to know how do I articulate values to my kids? He's 23 years old. Diane mentions, in Denver, mentions birth control. Maureen in Portland speaks about the dropping of God from schools. Is that true? And Alan in Fayetteville, North Carolina. The generation that values but no basic philosophy. All right. Until next Ultimate Issues Hour, this is Dennis Prager.
Tomorrow on Timeless Wisdom with Dennis Prager.
Why is it that women tend to be more liberal in their politics than men?
You were talking in the last segment. One of the comments that you made me really think about something, and that was that generally women tend to look at things from the viewpoint of more individual. And
how does it affect me? How does it affect me and my family? Go ahead.
Well, right, and growing up, in a family that has both of those points of view, you're going to tend to absorb. I think you're going to tend to absorb the point of view of the people that raise you.
I was calling because I think that a big part of what it comes down to is women are more emotional and are nurturers by nature, and so women have this, kind of innate feeling that they need to take care of everyone. And so instead of looking to solve the actual problem that's making people unhappy or deal with financial issues or whatnot, they think of it kind of that short-term fix, like something's wrong, so let's go shopping and make ourselves happy. I think women tend to do that in a lot of aspects of life, and so when they see all these issues in society, that they think that they can go out and cure the world, kind of, instead of finding what the problem is.
I'm a mother of 5 children, and I was raised in South Louisiana, which was always basically Democrat. My husband also. But when I registered at 18 as a Republican. And all of our children are Republicans, but now I'm an accountant and my husband is an artist. But I was raised in a military family.
That's right. Well, you're explaining your own situation. I don't have to say a word. I think
all 5 of our children are Republicans.
Well, listen, I will tell you this. One thing that I've noticed, I'm a black conservative here in Georgia, and I was raised Democrat. And one thing I've noticed is that the black electorate tends to vote in a way that aligns with female thinking. That whole nurturing on an individual basis, emoting versus thinking. And
what percentage of blacks were raised by moms without dads?
Well, arguably, there's a greater percentage of them.
That's right. And who knows if that isn't related? A caller earlier exactly made this point.
Absolutely.
Join us tomorrow to hear more on Timeless Wisdom with Dennis Prager. Visit DennisPrager.com for thousands of hours of Dennis's lectures, courses, and classic radio programs, and to purchase Dennis Prager's Rational Bibles. We want to take just a second to thank the team at Life Audio for their partnership with us on the podcast. Go to lifeaudio.com to find dozens of other faith-centered podcasts in their network, including shows about prayer, Bible study, parenting, and more.
Rising interest rates, stock volatility, out-of-control inflation. People are concerned about what the future holds financially. This is Dennis Prager for AmFed Coin and Bullion. There's no better time than the present to move a portion of your IRA into precious metals. You should know there's a right and a wrong way to set up your precious metals IRA. Mistakes could cost you hundreds of thousands of dollars in IRS fines. Call AmFed Coin and Bullion, 800-221-7694. AmericanFederal.com. That's AmericanFederal.com.